I'm Debo. Who? Debo.
I just took mine in.
YouTube family, my name is Sheed and I am a school psychologist, behavior intervention specialist, and consultant. I want to welcome you back to RillSheed, where we break down, review, react, and analyze various content from across the good old interwebs, including but not limited to mental health as well as grown man business. Real quick housekeeping item. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now at this very moment that I'm making this recording, okay? We're currently sitting at 60 subscribers. Let's try and get to 100 by April. Today, we'll continue to review the video of Andrew Tate on the Fresh and Fit podcast and use this as another opportunity to break down, review, and debunk very popular yet unfortunate myths about depression. So please make sure you go back and watch parts 1, 2, and 3. Today we're on part 4, which is the fourth and final, yes, the final part of this series, okay? The links are down below. Go and check out parts 1, 2, and 3 so you understand exactly where we're picking up today and where we left off on part 3. Got it? Good. So let's get back to it. Class is back in session.
And this whole society of accepting depression, as soon as someone's depressed, instantly go to them, oh, poor you, it's okay, we know you can't help it, you can't help it. Why are you telling people they can't help it? Why are you reinforcing that mindset in people?
I actually agree with that point. Depression can absolutely be treated, and people should not reinforce the mindset that it can't be helped. But this also prompts a very close look into the mirror. Now, I'd like to throw this question back at Andrew Tate, but I like to rephrase it a bit, right? So instead, I'd like to say, why are you willing to tell the very men that you claim to help that seeking therapy and psychopharmacological treatment won't help? Why are you telling people that depression isn't real, right? Why are you telling men that the cure for depression is $1 million and a pep talk about how there's less fortunate people in the world than you? Look in the mirror.
If you live in a house, I say this all the time, this is the reason I don't believe in depression. Because I don't believe in depression, I cannot become depressed.
Bam.
No matter what the worst thing that could possibly happen to me on earth, I will feel sad, but I will recover and I will not become depressed because I don't believe in depression.
Wow, the land of make-believe.
Do you understand that it's the belief that gives it power?
Right.
If you don't believe in ghosts, the ghosts can't hurt you. If you don't believe in depression, you can't become depressed.
Oh, wow. Of course, this is a very healthy way of thinking about things, right? If you don't believe in HIV, then how can you catch HIV? If you don't believe in cancer, then how can you get cancer or be diagnosed with cancer? If you don't believe in the Rona, then you can't get the Rona, right? If you don't believe in any kind of illness or disease or condition or disorder, then there's no way that you can catch it. All you have to do is believe. Just believe.
You gotta do what?
I gotta believe.
And I refuse to believe in something that's gonna weaken me. Why would I believe in something that's gonna weaken my ability to deal with problems in life? Why would I do that? I'm temporarily immortal. Do you understand? Do you understand? I'm temporarily immortal. And I'm not gonna waste my living years believing in things which take power from me.
Well, because whether or not you believe in it, depression can be so debilitating that it does in fact significantly impair one's life across multiple domains: personal, interpersonal, occupational, and yes, even academic, okay? You see, science doesn't care about your opinions. Science doesn't care about your opinions, doesn't care about your views. Science doesn't care about your beliefs. All it takes is the right or wrong combination of genetic predisposition, brain chemistry, stressful life events, and or drugs to bring about a depressive episode. And whether you acknowledge depression's existence or not, it still exists outside of your protective fort made of couch cushions.
Built you a little fort, huh? Fuck about your little fort, nigga.
But there's something that I noticed that I briefly mentioned earlier, and I just want to go into this one last time. Andrew Tate seems very adamant that depression doesn't exist, despite irrefutable evidence that it does exist. It seems like a personal choice he's making that's based not in confidence, not in confidence, not in competence, but it seems like a personal choice that he's making that's based in fear and avoidance. Now, the rest of the video is Andrew Tate rambling and saying more of the same while Fresh and Fit co-sign everything that he says. So I think we're gonna wrap up the video right here. There's a link to the entire video below. So overall, how did Andrew Tate and the Fresh and Fit duo do? Well, let's check it out. Overall, Andrew Tate gets an F for his ignorance on the topic of depression. He was very misinformed about the causes, nature, symptoms, and treatment methods for depression. He incorrectly stated that more men suffer from depression than women. He incorrectly stated that having depression is weak and selfish. Andrew Tate also did not understand the distinction between feeling depressed or sadness and having depression. He was also wrong about Robin Williams' physical and mental health and what caused him to take his life. Andrew Tate also gave very inaccurate and dangerous information about how to respond to someone with suicidal thoughts. His views on suicide and suicidal ideation as a symptom of depression are further evidence that he is not properly equipped to navigate the deep and often torrential waters of depression or men's mental health. Andrew's ramblings, while incoherent at times, were filled with dangerous misconceptions and misinformation about depression and suicide that may be considered extremely harmful, especially to men. While he was loud, boisterous, emphatic, and repetitive, it seems that in Andrew Tate's mind, his behaviors while trying to explain his ill-informed opinions about depression were the epitome of a confident, stern, strong, and quote-unquote alpha male, when in reality, his behaviors and the lack of content to support his views appear lazy, weak, and ignorant. His behavior and the contents of his red cup are not enough to mask the fact that he was incorrect, ill-informed, incoherent at times, ignorant, dismissive, and lazy for not doing his homework. In addition to Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit also get an F. Fit co-signed many of Andrew Tate's statements on depression and men with children who die by suicide. Now, for a podcast that claims to be the #1 podcast that is focused on helping men, this episode is extremely harmful and detrimental to men with mental illness, specifically depression. What they failed to realize is how debilitating depression is to many men and how it negatively impacts the brain, body, and behavior. They don't realize that many men with depression who also have suicidal ideation as a symptom of depression suffer in silence because they have been given harmful advice from friends, family, and ill-informed podcast hosts and YouTubers with little to no understanding of depression or mental illness. Fellas, I have a message for you. Okay, fellas, I have a message for you, and I think it's time that we have a talk, fellas. Andrew Tate refuses to accept that depression is real. He refuses to accept it, and that's his choice. People have a choice to remain ignorant, but you don't have to make that same choice. See, we don't use fear to run away from facts over here. We stand firm, and we learn from those facts to overcome our obstacles. We may fall in the process, but everybody does. Everybody falls, everybody fails. It's okay, but we get back up. We get back up. Now, fellas, as men, we tend to think that we can carry the weight of the world on our shoulders all by ourselves without any side effects to our mental health. Some of us are truly stuck in some very dark places, some very brutal places that others can't fathom at all. And we can't seem to pull ourselves out because we're weighed down by the intense guilt, self-hatred, irrational thoughts, cognitive distortions, and fatigue of depression. If you know what I'm talking about, you know how insurmountable those odds may seem, but help is available to help you with coping with and navigating those depressive episodes so you can start feeling joy and happiness again, and so you can start feeling productive and get your life back. Fellas, I know somebody's watching this video right now. Somebody's watching this video right now who's been struggling with depression, who has been fighting depression, and you've been told a number of things by people who have no understanding for what you're experiencing or what you're going through. You've been told depression isn't real. You've been told depression isn't an illness, or that depression, it'll just get better with time, it'll just pass with time. Or you've been told to man up, or people have told you you're not really depressed. Or people will say things like, God won't give you more than you can handle. Or there's someone in the world who wishes that they were in the same position as you. Be grateful, right? Or maybe you've been told that only weak men get depressed. Or maybe you've been told that therapy doesn't help, or that they're gonna make you take medication, right? I know that you all have heard at least one or two of the very things that I just said. Listen, these are popular misconceptions that people, especially men, have heard about depression and mental illness for generations. And if you, yes, you have a history of saying these things to someone who has depression or has expressed suicidal ideation, and you continue to say these things because you think that they're somehow helping the person with depression, I have some advice for you. Don't. Shut up. Shut up. As someone who works closely with children, teenagers, adults, and families who have felt the impact of depression, trust me when I say, you're doing way more harm than you realize. Now, for those of you who have said some of these things to someone with depression or someone struggling with their mental health, but you learn how unconstructive and dangerous these quote unquote sayings can be, thank you. Look, I'm not about to act holier than thou like I was always a school psychologist, because I wasn't. I was not always an advocate for mental health. I wasn't. I had to sit in my ignorance when I was younger, because when you're younger, you don't know what you don't know. There was a time when I said or thought a couple of the same things to a friend or someone who I cared about who had depression, and what happened is I grew increasingly frustrated because it never seemed to work. You see, those same pep talks, they never had the desired effect. And listen, let's be clear. You don't have to be a psychologist. You don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be a counselor to understand that this doesn't work. Pep talks don't work for people who have clinical depression. Matter of fact, you can just be a regular person, just you watching this video as you are right now. If you know, and if you have had any interactions, significant interactions with someone who has depression, especially moderate or severe depression, and you have tried to offer a pep talk, then you know exactly how frustrating it can be. You know why? Because it doesn't work. It is not a magic pill for depression. It does not automatically snap them out of their depressive episode. So for those of you who learn to be better and to do better, I sincerely salute you. And I also ask that those of you who just now learned about what to say to someone with depression, give yourself some grace. Why? Because you didn't know what you didn't know. And now that you know better, you can do better. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave some resources in the description of this video so you have an idea of what you can do to help someone expressing suicidal thoughts and someone in an emotional crisis, whether it be depression or working through a depressive episode. You know, you've heard me beat you over the head, and you've seen me beat you over the head with facts about depression for the last God knows how many minutes. And I hope that it was useful for you. But you know what I understand from working as a school psychologist and working in mental health and education? You know what I've realized? Sometimes words have a greater impact when they come from somebody else. So what I'm also gonna do to close out this video is we're gonna close out on another video by a psychologist by the name of Dr. Jordan Peterson, talking about the very negative and nasty effects of depression and suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of one another. Peace.
Depression is a terrible thing. And many, many, many things cause it, and we don't understand. We understand some of them, but lots of them we don't understand at all. You know, sometimes people get depressed because they're really sick. We know that depression can be an inflammatory disease. It might be associated with autoimmune dysfunction. There's lots of reasons that people get depressed, and depressed people can go places that are so dark you just cannot imagine it. And it isn't necessarily the case that you can always rescue someone, you know. And the depressed person thinks, and this is probably the worst part of it, the depressed person thinks, everywhere I look, it's nothing but catastrophe. And I can't see any way out of it. I can't see any path forward whatsoever. And then they think as well, and maybe it's the combination of these two thoughts that really make people suicidal. It's like, it's hopeless. It isn't going to get any better. No matter where I turn, there's no escape. The suffering is unbearable. And I'm absolutely no use whatsoever to anyone. It would be better for everyone if I was just gone, because if I'm not so much of a burden now that it's going to destroy their life, then I'm going to be that much of a burden in the future. And so it's hard to imagine what that's like for people, but it's dreadful. And there's lots of ways you get there. And so you can listen to people, you can desperately encourage them to seek the help they need. You know, like I've seen antidepressants work miracles on very, very many people. Now, they don't work for everyone, and they're not a panacea, but, you know, they have side effects and all of that. But one of the side effects of untreated depression is that you kill yourself, and there is no recovery from that. And the probability is actually rather high. So you can go to war with them about antidepressants. If the person can't get out of their depression and they're suicidal, it's like, what do they have to lose? 1 month on antidepressants. They'll know. Well, they might have to experiment longer, because it would depend on, you know, some people respond better to some classes of antidepressants than the others. It's worth having a war with someone if they're in dire straits and they won't do everything they can to get better. ECT works, electroconvulsive therapy works for intractable depression. Depression is a multifaceted phenomenon.